Hey, Dr. Pete checking in. I wanted to come up with some type of analogy to better describe that while we recognize that spirituality and health are often separate things, or let's say spirituality and the body can be separate things, they're really not opposed to each other. Gains made in one field are beneficial to the other and vice versa. I wanted to compare it to a bird. Okay, you are the bird. You are trying to fly. You're trying to soar. Okay, that's your goal. Highest good. Let's call that spirituality. The soaring, the flying. And let's say that the physical dynamics of flying, such as the air and the resistance and the friction and the effort you have to put into flying to overcome those material limitations or metrics, is frustrating. And you're wondering, hey, is flying opposed to that friction and that resistance and that wind and that air? And you might say to yourself, you know what, I want to just fly in a vacuum. If I had nothing to flap my wings against, I'd soar even higher. And we know that that's false, right? You have to have the air. You have to have the resistance, the friction, in order to create that ability to soar ever higher in the sky. And so, in a certain way, I would say that fasting for spiritual goal and fasting for health are, two barrels of the same gun. It's the same scenario. And, it's that dualism. These things are united. They're not really separated. They're identifiable, but they're not separate, separately existing. They're certainly intertwined. And so I think that's important. Another situation that was brought up was, let's imagine that you're in a dilemma, an ethical dilemma, where a friend of yours is not well, has a disease, and you're worried that you might contract that disease if you help give them support and health. You might even, die from that disease. And so I would say that the spiritual thing, the right thing to do, is to take care of your friend. We know that there's some value in that. There's a very Christian approach to that care and that cure that you can provide, even if it's at your own expense. Well, you could say that that is an act of love, and that, this person, although they're bodily are going to suffer, in spiritual terms and virtue terms, they're going to be lifted up ever higher. What I'll tell you is this: that is not just an exercise in spirituality. That will eventually translate into medical breakthroughs and therapies that we now recognize work to take care of that illness. I mean, imagine if we took the perspective on patients with Down syndrome or cancer or some other disease, where we thought to ourselves, you know what, let's just put them in the leper colony, let them die. And we didn't do anything. What medical discoveries would we not be aware of then? And in a certain sense, that is the entire point of Western medicine. It's all based in a Christian perspective and goal of providing care and cure to people, sometimes at your own expense. So in a certain way, pursuing healing of body can result in not just a spiritual insight or a spiritual gain, but also will lead to true medical cures. So, we can't oppose these things, the spiritual and the physical. And so, with that said, soar ever higher, learn the lessons that are to be learned spiritually, and at the same time, celebrate the fact that in the very engineering of the world that is around us, the physical, the medical, the scientific, that there is a benefit. And I mean, who's responsible for that? Well, I would have to say God himself. And we can't be angry at our Creator for those interplays.